Thank you for clicking this video. In this video, I just want to talk about default fees. And this is because someone has asked twice that we talk about default fees on the channel. And this video is for you. Default fees are fees that a party is required to pay when they fail to do something that the court has commanded. Ordinarily, filing of court processes. Ordinarily, filing of court processes is guided by the rules of court. So whichever court you're going to, you need to read the rules before you commence any matter in that court. So the court will stipulate how you can commence matters, the kind of processes that you can file, the time frame within which to file the processes, and what happens if you do not file within that time frame. So usually, for instance, if you're supposed to commence an action by a writ of summons, for instance, say at the Federal High Court, the rules of the Federal High Court rules, civil procedure rules, state the period within which a defendant is supposed to respond once they have been served. Once you file the originating process, that's your writ of summons, and it's been served, the defendant, upon receipt, has 30 days to reply and file their own defense, statement of defense, and all other documents that they're supposed to file together. So once those 30 days elapse, usually court days are counted on court sitting days, that is excluding Saturdays and Sundays. So once those 30 days, so it's when we say that means when we say 30 days, we won't be referring to 1 month. It could be over a month when you remove Saturdays and Sundays. So, but once those 30 days lapse, a defendant that is filing their response, their statement of defense, will have to pay default fees. Some courts can charge as high as 1,000 naira, and you can have some as low as 150 naira. You know, some of the rules are old, and the prices or the fees have not been adjusted that much to meet up with modern day realities. And sometimes this is why some lawyers don't care, because they know that they can always afford the default fees. So the payment that is made when you do not file a court process within the time frame provided for by the rules for you to file it, that payment is what we call default fees. And ordinarily, the case or the matter cannot proceed if you have not paid your default fees, because when you now file that process eventually, you have to file it with proof of payment of default fees for every day of default. So for instance, Federal High Court says 1,000 naira for every day of default in filing your statement of defense. Now, maybe you default for 20 days. That's 20,000 naira. So when you're filing your statement of defense, eventually you have to file it alongside. You have to file alongside it a receipt, a court receipt, a court registry receipt, showing that you have paid the 20,000 naira. This money usually goes into the coffers of the court, and essentially it's for the state, because the court is part of the government, the judicial arm of the government. So this is one of the means by which the court generates revenue. In some instances, there are cases that might go on without you filing default fees if the court is not insistent on it. But usually it is at the discretion of the court to insist on it, because it is revenue going to the court. So if the court does not insist, the court will be losing out on revenue. So sometimes a party will bank on this and say that they've not paid their default fees, so we can't continue, my lord. And usually sometimes to parties or a party, a lawyer that's not ready to go on with the matter, we hide on the fact that, I'll tell my lord that the other party has not paid default fees, so the matter cannot continue. In some cases, as I have seen personally, the court would say, what is that to you? The money is ours. We can decide whether we want to continue with the matter without collecting our revenue or not. So let's continue. So what I'm saying is that non-payment of default fees by the other party is not an excuse tenable enough for a matter not to go on. So if you're a party, if you're a lawyer, don't bank on it as a sure means of getting an adjournment on a day when you're not ready to go on with your matter. But in some cases, the court itself will decide that we will not go on until you have paid the default fees. So it's very important. Default fees must be paid. They must be paid because the court must generate revenue. Even better if you do your matters or file your processes within time to avoid payment of default fees. So that's essentially what default fees are. If you want to know what the fees are for each court and for each process that you're filing, you need to check the rules of court. For instance, for filing of written addresses, a party is supposed to file within 21 days. So once you have received it as defense, for instance, or maybe the defense files first because they closed their case last, they have to file first. Once you've received as claimant, you have 21 days from the day of being served. From the date of receipt of the defendant's written address, the claimant has 21 days to file their own written address. So if they do not file within those 21 days, by the time they are filing, they have to file alongside proof of payment of default fees. For instance, a court could say 150 naira per day. So you calculate the number of days for which you are in default and you pay everything. You file your payment receipt, proof of payment alongside the process that you are filing. So that's all I want to talk to you about on default fees today. I will see you in my very next video. Toodles.